Welcome to Mask Off, the intersection of life, mental health, and hip-hop culture. Today, we have a guest, another friend, something I've known for probably about 15, 20, 15, somewhere around there. It's at least 15, right? DJ, celebrity DJ, you wanna call him? Investor. I think most proudly he's probably husband and father, I think are the titles that he probably likes the most. We got Mick, you know? I knew you as Mick Boogie, but you are throwback name. Yeah, we're gonna erase. Yeah, just shorten. It's still the same guy, but
shorten the name. Like less is more.
But you know, for me, I'm Hawaii Mike, but my real name is Dylan Michael Salmon. That's my given name, and you are?
Oh, my given name?
Yeah.
My given name is Mick Boogie.
Mick Boogie. Now I finally know how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
I've never actually
and you'll never need to use it.
I've never had to use it because it's always
here's a fun fact. My real name is actually William Michael.
Oh.
And then on day 2 of my life, my family started calling me Mickey off of the Michael.
Yep.
Because my grandpa on my mom's side was Michael, but they called him Mickey. So I just kind of like inherited that. And then I was Mickey until 18. And then like you're like, you gotta cut that shit. You know what I mean? Like you just wake up one day and it's like, you can't be Mickey when you go to college. So I just made it Mick.
I mean, if we were in the 50s, you probably could.
Yeah. Or if I was like if I was Irish, but I'm not even Irish, I'm Polish. So like there's, there was no, but yeah, so like William Michael is like when you get pulled over or you're like TSA,
Yep.
like a couple times a year I'll get like William, and I'm like, huh?
You're like, who's that? Yeah, I mean, when people call me my real name, I'm still like looking around, you know, because very few people know my actual first name.
But Mike's your middle name?
Mike is so really it's Dylan Salmon. Mike I picked because everybody used to pronounce my name wrong.
Oh, so you just needed a simple name.
Yeah, so it was Dylan, that's how I used to be called, like, because my name is spelled D-Y-L-I-N. My parents are hippies, so E-D-D-Y, the D-Y from Eddie and the L-I-N from Linda.
Wow.
And that's my name.
That's
right?
fun.
So it was always Dylan. When I moved to Hawaii, I was like, man, everybody's messing my name up, this is tough. I was like, I need something stronger than that. I chose Michael because it's like Archangel.
Yeah, so unique.
So unique, right? But I always say this, I don't know if I would have been given the nickname Hawaii, because Hawaii Dylan doesn't really roll off the tongue.
No, it sounds good with
but Hawaii Mike works.
And I think about with me, like when I when I took the Boogie off the name, and even I don't even really use the word DJ in front of my name anymore, but I do Mick a stylized in all caps, more like as a brand, and it works. But I'm lucky because Mick is a unique name. It's not like unique like certain people have like really, but it's rare enough that it stands out. Like in MySpace, if my name was John or just Mike or William or Bob or whatever the case may be, like it didn't work, but when you think of like the branding of the word Mick, there's like Mick Jagger, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mantle. There's not a lot of like,
but there's not even a lot of Micks.
Yeah.
I think it's just Jagger is the only one that comes to my
Mark
mind.
Ronson's dad was Mick Ronson. He was like I think in Foreigner.
Oh yeah.
But it's just like there's just not a lot. So like I got lucky in the sense that like the nickname that worked against me for so long became like the nickname that worked for me now as an adult. So
isn't it ironic how that works?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I still want to like all those kids in like 7th grade. I still want to go beat their ass, but like,
For calling you Mickey Mouse.
It turned out okay.
All right, so where are you from? Family life? What did that look like growing up?
I grew up in Ohio, in the middle of Ohio. Youngstown, Ohio is the city. It's equidistant between Cleveland and Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Very blue collar, very mafia based. Not my family, but it was a steel mill town.
Got it.
All the things, and then steel mills go away, the mafia comes. It's kind of like that. It's not like that now, to my knowledge, but it wasn't the most like hotbed of America with shit going on. And it was interesting because we lived between 2 big cities, but we were a small city, still a city, had all like the things that a city would have, but very micro, and it was, I'm grateful for that entire journey of it, but it was really interesting because you always wanted to know what would be going on in like the big city. So even when I started like falling in love with like hip hop, we didn't have any radio stations that played hip hop in our town. Though Youngstown had a significant black population and other like it was a very diverse city, but there wasn't enough to have like a urban radio station. So like the only I would hear hip hop on the radio is like if I was in the car and we were driving 30 minutes north of the city towards Cleveland, you would catch a Cleveland station, or if you would go 30 minutes south, you'd get like a Pittsburgh station, but you couldn't get it there. So it was very interesting. Like all these things that made me want to be a DJ, they were just so hard to get to. Like,
So how did you get what was like the first record you remember hearing that you were like, I love this music?
I remember hearing "I Need Love"
Okay.
because it hit pop radio, and then, but I have very little memories of it. But then when I was in 4th grade, I heard "Parents Just Don't Understand" because that hit pop radio.
Yep.
And that my sister and I like loved because we were like, it was fun. That record did what it was supposed to do. It was a gateway drug for people who didn't know hip hop to like be introduced to it. And then when I bought that album, and I distinctively remember getting that album at a Kmart. I remember the whole day because like they had to unlock the cassette case and all that, and it was like a double album. And every other song on that album was like break beats and scratches and freestyles and beatboxing, and it was just 2 songs on the album that sounded like that. It was that and Nightmare on My Street. But all the other songs was like Jeff just cutting up breaks and Will freestyling and battle raps. That album was mostly battle raps and beatboxing and just all sorts of stuff. And then as a 4th grader, I was disappointed at first because I thought I didn't understand what any of that other stuff was, and I wanted a whole album of those 2 songs. And then as I grew to really listen to it, because if you think about when we consumed music back in the day, you didn't have everything. You had what you could find, what you could buy. And as a DJ, I would always add in, when DJing was vinyl, we could talk about this part later, but like DJs were limited by what you could find, what you could buy, and then what you could carry. So like you could have every record in the world, but if you only bring 4 crates to the party, those are the 4 crates that are going to define what these people in this room think of you. It doesn't matter if you have a wall of records in your house. Like you have to like, what can you bring, you know? But as a kid and as a teenager and as a whatever I was at the time, like you only could have what you had. And so because you didn't have infinity and you valued it so much. So like I had no choice to like listen to that album over and over and over and over and over and over and over again because I didn't have any other albums. I didn't have another $20 or $10 to go back to like Kmart or go to the mall and go to like Sam Goody and buy another thing. So you just fall in love with what you have and you make it work for you. And then through that art of discovery and repetition, you hear all the subtle nuances of things that you would have skipped. Like how many we listen to an album now? You just, okay, I listen to these 2 songs. I don't like these 3. You're never gonna hear those songs again, purposely.
Yep.
Now I'm like, all the songs we hate. I would bet you anybody, especially of our generation, who came from the cassette and CD era, especially the cassette era, even more so than the vinyl era. Because vinyl era, you could still like, okay, I don't like track 2. I'm just gonna move it to track 3. Cassette, if you were gonna fast forward 2 songs, you still had to wait 30 seconds. So you probably weren't gonna do that shit as much because you just listened to it. And all those songs, we all can tell you songs that like we hated, and now they're our favorite shit on the whole album. Because you know, it's like exposure therapy, right?
Yep.
And then you just listen to it over again, and you're like, oh my God, like I can't believe that like I used to hate that song. That's my shit. Or like, and so that was how I developed my love of really like, I think that's where my DJ brain kind of started to develop, right? Like I was just like, oh, okay, so everybody buys these things for the singles, and that's cool, but I'm gonna like, I instantly was, not in 4th grade, but
That's
like,
what I was about to ask.
but middle school.
Okay.
I started to think, okay, that's what people like. My ear seems to be gravitating towards the other stuff, and I would be the guy where if you're gonna go buy I'll make this up, but like the cassette single of CNC Music Factory, Gonna Make You Sweat. Remember that? Like that was a big cassette single era, right? I'm gonna buy the maxi single because it has 4 other remixes. And then like, you're gonna get the maxi single. Well, then I'm gonna go buy the CD single that has the European remixes that don't. And then you're gonna go get that. Well, then I'm gonna go find the one cool record store in our town that has the Japanese CD single because it has different art. And I didn't realize that was a DJ mindset because I didn't have any records or anything at the time. I didn't know how to DJ. I didn't have a turntable. But that curation mindset and that always wanted to have that one thing slightly different. That's a DJ mindset. That's a sneakerhead mindset. Yep. That's a streetwear mindset. That's a art collector mindset. It's the same mindset across many different, verticals. But that's what. And now, 20, 30 years later, we're all the same. Like we all of us are all friends, and we're all in the same worlds. And it wasn't like that really back then. And it's just really interesting how we all have that same appreciation for good curation.
I mean, I think it's an energy thing too, man. I think it's like there's so much about these creations where it's like you get competitive, right? That's part of the energy. Yeah. There's the cool factor. That's part of the energy. That first kind of factor is part of the energy, But what also, just to rewind a little bit, what was the family?
I'm sorry, I went way too far.
What was the family structure like?
My family structure was nuclear in a way that like my parents were together. Okay. Probably shouldn't have been, but they were. They didn't always get along, but they stayed together for my whole life. I have a sister who we're still close. She lives in Ohio still. She's a nurse. She does
Older, younger?
2 years younger.
2 years younger. Okay.
And she's always like, it was funny. Like we were on a musical journey together growing up as a kid. Like
Nice.
like whatever I didn't have, she had. So if I had like Doggy Style, she had like Mary J. My Life, or if I had like Belle Biv DeVoe, she had like Ralph Tresvant. Van. So we would like swap like CDs and stuff, which was really cool.
Okay, dope.
Which was fun, and she still has really good music taste to this day, which is like kind of fun. Yeah, and so that was our life, and it was this basic late '80s, early '90s life. You school, you come home, you talk to your parents for an hour, and then just go to your room and do your thing.
Yep.
And it wasn't like the way I raise my kid now, or the way that it's just what it was, and it worked. We're all here.
Simple American suburban life.
It was just very basic.
White picket fence?
No fence.
No fence. Okay. And then, what was school like for you? Like getting around?
I was a super nerd in school. I was like,
Okay.
I was like supremely overweight. I was super nerdy.
Supremely overweight?
I was marching band. I was like, I was like a band nerd, school nerd, unattractive nerd, like all the things. And then I also had like a job working for my grandparents at a drugstore in our small town. And it was the only real job I've ever had in my life, but I had it from 7th grade until the day I went to college. And, everybody else would go after school and go do stuff, and I'd be there like selling gum and tobacco and prescription pills and lottery tickets and all sorts of shit I had no business selling at 12, 13 years old to grown-ups.
Yep.
And it's interesting because I tell this story to my kids sometimes. Like, my grandpa, who was basically like my second father in a lot of ways, he was like my neighbor. He co-raised me. My grandparents co-raised me with my parents in a lot of ways because my grandparents were able to provide things economically that my parents couldn't provide, and they were also to provide things from an experience point of view that my parents couldn't provide because life didn't go the way they wanted it to, but my grandparents' life was a lot better. So like I kind of got the best of like both sides.
Yep.
Like my parents would be like, no, you can have one Transformer for Christmas and this is what you have. But my grandparents would be like, we're going to Disney World. Like it was just kind of
Nice.
like, and so you got like both sides, and
Yep.
it was really interesting. And I think that enabled me the ability, even as an adult, to move between multiple worlds all the time because I can kind of like relate to all sorts of things. But back to what I was saying, my grandpa didn't like give a fuck about me being embarrassed at all. Like he was just like, you're here to work. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't working. Then it was be funny. Like I'm at his house and we were like the best of friends, and we were like, but they taught me the difference of like being very serious while you're at work versus like being normal while you're off. So my grandma would be like, when I'd go to her house, like she'd be like, please eat these chips, eat this popcorn, eat this pizza, eat this chicken. I made you this, eat all you want. I'd be like, dude, I'm like fat. Like I don't need any more food. She'd force feed me. But I'd be at the drugstore. And I'd be like, can I get this bag of Ruffles to go with my sandwich on my lunch break? And she'd be like, 30 cents. Because it was coming from the shelf. It wasn't coming from the pantry.
Yep.
And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
That time you didn't understand
I'm going to
it.
go to your house in 1 hour and you're going to give me a bag of popcorn this big, but like, you're going to take my 30 cents for a shitty bag of like Ruffles or like Lay's. And I was like, this is fucked up. But as an adult, you look back on it and like, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. My grandpa was the same way. He was just like, the most kindest, generous person I'd ever met in my life. He was actually my step-grandpa. He's my grandma's second husband. But he would make me like, this is still one of the most amazing things in my life. My middle school was across the street from the drugstore. And he would make me jump in the dumpster to push the garbage down. So we could double like, when you can't fit your bag in the bin, you gotta push that bag down. Mm-hmm. I was the hand pushing the bag down, but it was my body pushing down a week's worth of garbage bags. So imagine when kids are like leaving school, all the cool kids, the athletes, the girls, and there's Mickey in the dumpster, jumping on the fucking dumpster, pushing the garbage down. And that does a lot for your self-esteem and your popularity and all of that. But it made me who I was. It made me double down into school, which made me smart. It made me double down into music. Because that was a community that like accepted me at my high school, and then that kind of like led to my life.
I mean,
so I'm glad for that garbage.
No, 100%. Like when you're in the middle of it, you're like, yo, this is the worst thing ever.
Oh, I was irate.
Yeah,
Now though, I make my kid do all sorts of shit. Take the fucking garbage out. Put your hand in it. I don't care. Go. I don't want to go. You have soap. We have soap. I work really hard so you can have soap.
Yeah.
Like go wash your fucking hands.
Yep.
You know, but you gotta take the garbage out.
Yeah, but I love that part of like, yo, buy this here, but no, you can have everything you want here. And knowing that difference, it seems so trivial, but it's so important, you know.
It's so
like
important.
It builds character, right? And it builds an understanding of business and the separation, especially becoming an entrepreneur, right? Later
you
on
have to
in
like
life.
know that like everything has its place, you
Yep.
know. And it's just like it's fascinating when we look at our youth and how those lessons, good and bad and otherwise, have impacted us in all sorts of ways.
And they shape who we become, right? For good, bad, or indifferent, but it's like, it's so important. And then it's like the people that comes from, right? Like sometimes you're like grandpa, like, dude, you're my favorite. Why would you do that to me? And then later
and then
on,
you realize it was I know exactly why he was doing it.
Now you're like, oh, thank you, bro. I love you. That was awesome. I appreciate it, you know? And so as you started getting to high school, when did the music thing really start to kind of pick up? Or,
Well, I was deep into like, by 8th grade, like hip hop was like exactly what I realized it was like exactly where I should be musically, because it appealed to all my musical senses at the same time, especially that era. Everything was being sampled, from classical to the Beatles to disco to funk to 80s. Like, I mean, it was just like, you could listen. I was like, from a time efficiency standpoint, I could listen to Paul's Boutique or you know, 3 Feet High and Rising and get, or Cypress Hill even, and get like 20 genres of music in 1 hour, versus like having to get all those things individually. And I was like, this is cool. I could learn all sorts of stuff and experience all sorts of different things in this really unique new way, but still hit all these musical touch points that I love. And at that same time, I was like playing drums. So I would go home from school and I would play drums to all these tapes.
dope.
And then that kind of like, you know, you can understand the evolution of the DJing from like, if I already had the curation in mind, and then I was already like developing a good palette for what works, and then I'm playing along with it from a drum perspective, it was easy to like move that to.
Did you have a drum kit at home?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
From my grandparents, not from my
Nice.
parents. But,
Nice.
you know what I mean?
And when did, how'd you get into drums? Just at school?
I got into drums. You know what's funny? I never thought about this, but when I was in 5th grade, we had a band program in my elementary school, and this is really funny. I have never thought about this in like 30 years. I was dead set. I was dead set on playing the oboe.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? I could have been like
Very popular choice.
Mickey 3000. You know, I could have been the original guy carrying around like, you know, because the oboe is it's like a shittier clarinet, a better flute. You know, I don't know. Like, it depends on how the sun blows that day. The sun doesn't blow, but you know, anyways, that goes weird. But so, and I wanted to like play. I don't know why. I think I just like the word. I was in 5th grade. I didn't know shit, and the band director was like, no, we have too many oboe people. You can play, but they were like, you could, also weird. But they were like, you can play. But they're like, do you play any other instruments? And I was like, I took a couple piano lessons in 4th grade. Like, I could play like a Christmas song and like Mary Had a Little Lamb. I mean, it wasn't a prodigy, obviously. But he was like, oh, you could play a little piano. And I'm like, yeah. They're like, you should play the xylophone. And so they had this kit, this thing. It was about half the size of this table, and it was a big metal xylophone that you would have to haul. It was like on the bus back and forth every day to school. It was fucking heavy, dude. It was like my weight. And in the plastic thing, it was a xylophone. It was this big, and there was one little drum pad. It wasn't a drum, but it was like a drum pad that made just enough noise. And so I never wanted to like play a drum. It was the other part of the drum kit, the drum thing that you would pay the school $50 and you got it for the whole year. You would basically rent this instrument, right? And some of the songs in the in the 5th grade band, you'd play xylophone on. It was very rudimentary, obviously. Yep. And then some of the songs that didn't have a need for xylophoning, you would just be tapping the drumsticks on this little pad. And then I was like, oh, that wasn't even what I signed up for. Like, you know, I was just like, okay, I can do a xylophone. And it became like, oh, okay, I could do that. And then that led to like drums. And then that led to DJing. So it's kind of funny, like that oboe door closed for me, and the DJing door.
I mean, I'm sure that happens a lot, bro. Like the oboe section was too filled.
Yeah,
like,
big oboe community in Youngstown.
Like I played the drums as a kid. Like both of my parents are musicians, and my father had me playing the drums from like 6th grade all the way through high school. And yeah, I couldn't imagine hearing that the oboe section, like, nah,
It's popping and
it's popping over here. It's like, nah, it's not gonna happen.
I'd love to see what ever happened to that oboe section in the 5th grade band.
Who'd they become? They became marine biologists. All right, so then the drums, and then in high school, you kept going to the drums, or did that kind of fizzle out?
No, drums stayed through college. I played drums in high school. That was my tribe of people.
So did you ever get into like a band?
I did like a jazz band in high school. I did marching band, all
Yep.
that sort of stuff, but never like a rock. I wasn't cool enough to be like in like a rock band. And then when I moved to college, I wanted to continue playing drums. I moved to Cleveland now, so now I'm in a real city, the city that has like a hip hop scene, hip hop radio. Now it's 96, so it's totally different. Like it's hip hop's everywhere.
Yep.
And I'm at a college, and I know I want to get a college radio show because I want, now my ear is so, but I'm not really a DJ yet. I just kind of like taught myself how to DJ a little bit during the summer because I sold a basketball card to get turntables.
Nice.
Which is like a Jordan card. Now Jordan rookie, now it's worth $10 million. So not the best trade, but mine wasn't mint. Mine wasn't a 9.9 or anything like that. So I'll take that trade. But my college didn't have a very robust music program. In fact, it was the exact opposite of my high school. My high school took music very seriously.
Yep.
College was like a joke. I think like the conductor, I'm sure he was like 24. I'm sure he was like fucking all the 19-year-old oboe girls. You know, it was just like, I walked in there and I was just like, huh. Like our high school band won all these like awards, and like it was like very serious. We had like ribbons and shit. This was just it was just like this is. I was like, I don't want to do this.
You're just getting a couple of credits.
So I'm just gonna but I learned very quickly the first day of college that like I went from being super band nerd last day of high school to the point that like I had 3 friends, and it was just like very nerdy. It was like I had a very unrobust social life and emotional life. Outside of like my actual tasks. But when I went to college, instead of having the burden of being band nerd, school nerd, family situations, jumping on the garbage, I'm now the kid that goes into the dorm room with 2 turntables and a couple crates of records because I acquired that during the summer. Perception, also when you have a completely new audience that doesn't know you at all, it was like, whoa, you're the coolest kid on the floor.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Okay.
I literally had my mom drive me to the senior trip because nobody would sit next to me on the bus. You know, I didn't know, like I was too embarrassed to like sit by, you know, I was like, I don't know who to ask to sit next to. I'm just gonna have my mom drive me there, and then I'll just like have her drive me home. You know what I mean? Like that was like my life in June of '96. You know, and then September of '96, I'm like, oh shit, this is wild. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
Yeah.
So how was that emotionally? Because if you're saying like, you know, you said you're overweight, you said you were kind of nerdy, you were in band,
all the things.
like you weren't getting invited to all the parties probably.
I never went to a party in high school.
Wow.
I have a memory of thinking I got invited to a party in high school. It wasn't even like a late night party. It was like an after school party. And I remember showing up at somebody's house and they were like, why are you here?
Wow.
Yeah, and I had to like, and I was just like, I thought I was invited, and it was like a soft bully situation. Pause, you know, and it was just like, So then I remember calling my mom, and she came and got me, and it's funny, right? Like that, I haven't thought about that in a long time too. But like that to go and being a guy, like obviously like I've been at some parties.
Yeah.
But like in high school, like I didn't even know about like stuff like that. Like so, it's funny.
I mean, were you emotionally aware enough, or did it kind of just?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I knew that I wasn't like in the in crowd, but it was also weird because like in school, in the confines of the 8 to 4, I was friends with everybody. Like because I would sit next to the cool kids in school. Our lockers were next to each other. I might even play recess basketball with you. Like, you know, like we were friends. We would do a book report together. Like if we were in like, you know, like at school, I wasn't so low on the pole that I was like, but after school, it's like I just never made that cut. It was really interesting. And it kind of like taught me a little bit about how to maneuver, you know, and it's fine. Worked out great.
You know, looking at you now, I feel like that's your choice now. Almost,
yeah, but you know
right?
what's crazy? Now though, my choice as an adult still is like, I'm very antisocial to this day. I don't want to go out unless I'm getting paid.
Yep.
I don't want to go to anything unless it's something I really want to be at. I want to go to bed at a respectable time. I don't want to be around people unless I really want to be around them. Like, all of those things I kind of like learned from like rejection in high school, have informed kind of like my career now. And my career could be much further if I was more social and went out to more things. And sometimes if I'm having like a slow 2 months, I'll be like, fuck it, let me just go out. And then sometimes you even have a good time. You're like, oh, I should do this more. And then then you just like, nah, I need to just stay my ass at home. But I do think a lot of that was attributed to like my high school social situation. Like, you know, I never learned how to be social to the point that when I started DJing, I still actually don't know how to be overly social, because now think about this, I never had to be social. Even in in my job, like it's like I learned how to be social at my job as a kid, but I worked at a drugstore, like people had to come talk to me. People like, oh, I want to get Snickers, I want to get a lottery ticket, like, and I'd be like, great, thank you very much. Like I didn't have to go up to them and be like, hey, can you please come buy this M&Ms? Like everyone was coming to our store, so it wasn't a sales job, it was a retail job, totally different like flow of information. And then I go to like being a DJ, right? Same thing. Like I'm behind the turntables since 18, so anytime I'm at a party, people are coming to talk to me. I don't have to walk in a room of girls or walk in a room of dudes I want to be friends with and be like, hey guys, I'm just moved here from a... No, I'm like just literally like, I'm cool. And if I'm not cool, I'm at minimum the focus of attention, not in an ego way, but just by the metrics of what I'm doing. I'm playing the music for the people, whether it's 5 people on the dorm floor or later on thousands of people. Like I'm always the guy like on this side. So people always have a vested interest in coming and talking to me, whether it's to make a request, to ask my name, or even when I'm done, like when I'm leaving, like to thank me, you did a good job, or you did a fucking horrible job, like whatever the case may be, they're still like talking to me. So I never had to learn the skill of being outgoing. I never had to learn the skill of being an extrovert. Like I admire people who can, like, we all know those people who could just walk into a room and just like own that shit. And like, I can't, I'm on my phone in the corner, I'm having a drink by myself. I could tell you every sports score anytime I go to an event, because I'm just like scrolling through. Like I don't know to this day how to walk into a room of strangers, or even moderate strangers, like where there's some familiarity, and just be comfortable. I can't do it. I'm 46, still can't do it. But if I was doing a party in a room and then I was like done and like the closer was on or something like that, and there's still an hour left, and I'm walking around after I had that one moment of me doing my thing, I can then, it's like a superpower. I can now walk around the room. You know, it's almost like...
It's like a glow up.
Yeah, but it's almost like, to the point of your show here, like mask off, right? Or like which one is the mask? I don't know. Like is my mask the one when I'm DJing? Is that the mask and I take it off when I'm done? Or is when I'm done DJing, the fact that I can go talk to those people, is that mask still on? Like which one is the real one?
It's like yes.
You know?
Honestly, it's yes,
both, yeah.
right? Because it's like, you know, even as parents or as business people or as husbands and you know, you have to change, you know, your mask sometimes, you know, to be with people and to do certain things and be in certain situations, right? But also, how do you take that mask off and know who you really are? Like, that's the important part.
Well, you always see this analogy. It was like, is Bruce Wayne really Batman, or is Batman really Bruce Wayne? Like, which one's actually the main character and which one's the alter ego? Yeah. And the way they build that mythology is such that it plays into that, right? And I think a lot of times, like, we become who we ultimately became. Like it's tough to differentiate that. And you know, for me, I'm lucky in that my career, my brand, and my personal like ethos is very. They're kind of similar in a lot of ways, but there are certain people who have gotten swallowed up by their success, and that's not a bad thing at all. But like if you live, it depends on what your brand is. If your brand is to be wild and crazy and party guy all the time, and that's what got you zillions of dollars and your whole social network and all of this stuff, right? How do you turn that off? Like you can't turn that off sometimes. And I think that creates a lot of mental health issues for people. I think that creates like a lot of all sorts of situations.
That's exhausting.
Yeah, you always have to be like on all the time. Like I don't know Khaled at all, but I would imagine like if that dude like, well, he doesn't go to Target anymore, or Walmart or like the grocery store, but like if he did, you know, before he became like do you have to be in character? Like, because I'm sure he doesn't talk like that all the time. But maybe he does.
I don't know.
But you know what I mean? Like, because imagine he goes to a drive-thru and he wants to order like a cheeseburger, and like, do you think he's gonna speak in his voice, like, or do you think he's just gonna like, what, does he have another voice? I'm sure he does. And I'm not singing on him. But just like, it's rough when you become known for being an exaggerated version of yourself. how do you turn that off? And when is it appropriate to turn that off? Because you never know where your next check could be coming from. You never know where your next whatever. And then there's even the point of like when you do turn it off, do you risk like offending people? If you're a super celebrity and you're sitting next to somebody on an airplane and you just haven't slept and your cousin just died and you're getting audited and you're sitting on the plane, you don't want to talk to somebody because you have all these things going on in your life that nobody knows, and you know you're not on. Now you're a dick.
Yep.
But you're not going to have 3 signs that say, hey, I have 3 fucking travesties going on in my life right now. Please don't talk to me. I'm trying to solve my life.
Yep.
You know, and so like you just never know. I guess that's the one thing I really learned in my old age is like you never know what somebody else is going through. Ever. And so like now that's kind of like my new thing. It's like when somebody, especially like, you know how people drive over here. Like it's just like, it's for full disclosure, I live in the same neighborhood where we're shooting this. Look at you like that, look right at the camera. That was like a one-on-one. That was like the breaking the wall thing, right? But like, you know, people do wild shit. And I'm always just like, why like, don't you see me on the corner with my kid? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Or shit like that. And then, you know, we had 2 kittens and one kitten died in December at like a couple months old. And we had to rush her to a vet, like a cat hospital, right? And I'm that guy, and I'm driving. Now I don't have flashers on my car. I don't have a siren.
Yep.
My wife's not screaming out the window like kitten sick, like blah blah. Like we're just driving from Myrtle to 4th Ave and Park Slope.
Yep.
Like I'm driving like a fucking maniac, going through bus lanes and like I'm running every light because I need to get my cat on life support. And there's no way. And so I'm just. When that happened, it just made me, I do still think 90% of people are assholes and idiots, but there are those exceptions, right? And that day I was that exception. So it's made me a little bit more mindful when somebody is driving crazy, acting crazy, whatever the case may be, like there may be a very valid reason. They may have a sick kid in the car. They may have a sick pet in the car. They may have their job that their alarm didn't go off and it's their first day and they really need that job. Like you just don't know. More than likely, no. More than likely they're just doing dumb shit. But you never know.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to give people that grace. And it's also like by giving people that grace, you give yourself that grace to not be consumed by it. Because then you got to like walk down. I don't want to walk. If that happens 4 blocks from my house, I don't want to carry that with me the 4 blocks home. I just want to like let that go. And then, but there's also a flip side, and actually I had to teach my son this lesson the other day. We were trying to cross the street, and some guy turns the corner and almost hits us. And I stood there, and I walked up to the car, and I gave the guy, I just started screaming at the guy, and because he was totally not paying attention, but like you could, and then he was like, "I'm very sorry," and I was just like, "I'm very forgiving," but I kept yelling at him until he drove away. He looked super shook, right? And my son was like, aren't we supposed to like forgive people? And I was like, oh, I said, I forgave him the minute he said, I'm sorry. But I said, one thing that I wanted to do for him, for all of our sake, is like, he just was literally doing bad driving. And I'm like, if I could put the fear of God in him enough to keep thinking about that for another 5 minutes while he's driving, instead of just feeling like he's sorry and moving on with his day, that's gonna hopefully stay in his brain a little bit more when he's driving a little. So I was like, I forgave him a long time ago. But I want him to drive away being like, yo, I fucked up. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, I fucked up. I'm sorry. The guy was really nice and just go on about your day. Like, when you're doing shit like that, like, I want you to know that you, like, fucked up. So I want you to feel that. So I forgave him a long time ago. But, like, he needs to know that, like, he almost, like, took out 3 people. And so, like, I just want him to, like, get that life lesson. Not that maybe it's not my place to do it, but, like, also, if I wasn't looking, I'd be dead.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. There's so much to unpack in that one, right?
It's a lot.
There's a lot, right? I hear the 4 agreements, right? Don't take anything personal. And that's one of those things is like that person isn't cutting you off. That person is just going somewhere, right? You guys don't even know each other, right? Or have you ever read The Untethered Soul?
I
like Michael A. Singer,
and then
right?
I read a paragraph and I was like, it's not for me, and I put it on the seat.
So there's an example in there though about being behind somebody in a car and screaming at them, and it's like, well, no, you're here. You can't really do anything about that and what they're doing.
Right.
It's like, this is that moment. You got to kind of let go of those things. But then there's the other side where it's like, no, these people are sometimes putting other people in danger.
Right.
And it's how do we, and
it's
one
like
thing
community
that,
service. I was a PSA for all of us.
for everybody, right? But there's something very interesting about us New Yorkers and people that live in New York for a long time. We'll stand, I'm not saying you were, but we'll stand in the street
Oh yeah.
And then get mad. Like, do you ever see the parents with their strollers in the street and
Yeah,
they're standing on the
Like,
sidewalk?
here's my kid, hit it.
Yeah, it's like I'm
Yeah.
standing on the sidewalk, but my kid is in the street. And so I think a lot of the times we all have some kind of input into these interactions.
Of course,
right?
of course.
But they do need to be said.
They do.
Right? And I think that if we were all a little bit more aware, we're so distracted. Like, we're not thinking about the thing that's right in front of us. We're thinking about what's on Instagram. We're thinking about where we're going. We're thinking about if we're going to be late and what the person is going to say. And oh my God, there's so many other things. And it's like, I think that's just the world we live in now, right? And so being mindful and practicing that, it's not everybody doing that.
To be clear, if I thought that guy was gonna like had a potential to like whip my ass though, I probably wouldn't have said that. My kid was like, "What's the rules on this?" I was like, "Also assess the situation." You know, like if I think that this might go south, maybe I just.
I love that at his age he's that aware to answer that, ask that kind of question.
It's kind of like it's a fun age because like you got to teach them like the rules, but like every rule also has rules.
Yeah, there's always an exception to the rule.
Yeah,
right.
Like, you know, like I remember once, like, actually, I don't know if he asked me or if somebody, like, I think once I was somewhere and somebody, like, bumped him. And I got, like, really upset. And I was, like, I confronted the dad, you know? And because it was an ignorant thing. You don't need to, like, bump my kid. Where do you draw, like, is me going to the hospital worth that? Mm-hmm. Probably not, you know? Mm-hmm. And so it's just, like, yes, you should always try to stand up for yourself and do the right thing. But, like, I do think there are physical and emotional costs at times with that too.
Sure. And
it actually made me think about even women who, or even men who are like in abusive relationships. Like there's just everything that we deal with, you can unpack it on so many different levels. Mm-hmm. And it's like, when can you stand up? When can't you stand up? Like when is it, why do some people end up in these situations where they could easily just say something or do something to get out? Maybe you can't. Like there's all these barriers and ceilings, whether they're glass ceilings or concrete ceilings that we don't understand why people can't. Cause like, why couldn't I say something like, you know, it's really interesting when you think about that.
Yeah. And I think you can. I think it's the how, right?
I'm still working on
it. It's like when we're very reactionary and our levels go up, it's a defense mechanism, right? If we can learn to do that through empathy and compassion, which is tough. It's tough. It's not easy to do, especially in those moments, because it happens that fast, right? But that's what I've learned is the key. Is trying to understand what that person is doing. Because maybe they weren't even spatially aware of bumping into your kid. Maybe they didn't even know they bumped into it,
1,000%.
right? But at the same time, it's like, hey, kind of what's going on with you right now? Like, you okay? You good? You here? Like, something, are you distracted? Like, what is it? And how can you approach it that way? And they go, well, by the way, you kind of bumped into my kid. Like, I don't even know if you noticed that. But, you know, and having that conversation, it's just, but it's a skill set to learn, right? It's a practice.
I don't know that I would be able to have that deep of a emotional conversation with a stranger in that moment of, you know.
But imagine that, right? Because imagine if you were on the reverse of it and somebody did that for you, right? Like maybe you bumped into somebody's kid and I know you're not the person to do that on purpose.
No, but I'm sure I bumped into somebody's kid. Yeah,
right? But that's what I'm saying. So imagine if that happened and they confronted you, but they did it with empathy and compassion. How that would make you feel, right? Because I think what happens is as soon as there's that interaction, our defenses go up. Right? We're like, nah, you can't do that. Like, what's wrong with you?
You double that because we're always in a rush. We're always, there's always like a lot of, you know,
right?
There's always other metrics at play.
And then add New York onto it.
Yeah.
Right? And then add all the other things that are going on in this world at this time. Right? So there's so many things that be compounded on that again, the mindfulness, the spatial awareness, and the presence a lot of the time isn't there. Like we're just not present right now.
We're walking, looking on our phones and doing all the things.
We're doing all the other things, right? But yeah, so this is a great part of the conversation. But let's get back to so when was your first DJ gig? Now that you're in the dorms, you're there, you're popping, you're the popular guy. What was your first gig, like when you got hired?
I don't remember, like, there were some smaller things like in the dorm for like a couple people, but so I did a college radio show that was like popular in like my freshman year.
Well, how did you get the show? Like, let's talk about that part.
I got the show because my RA, my resident assistant of my freshman year, who's still my friend to this day, one of my oldest friends, he supported the fact that I was the kid in the dorm that had like turntables, because he also loved hip hop, and he actually had like one record. He had like a Rockhound record or something, and he showed it to me, and I was like, oh, we're kind of alike. But he was like 4 years old. He's a doctor now. He's a super successful doctor, great dad, great family guy, And I'll send him this. He'll appreciate the shout out. Ilche, what's up? And you know, he like took a liking to me because we had that shared interest, right?
Okay.
And he knew people who had like radio shows. So like this one guy would always like not do his show. And so I was like always like at his show hanging out, but he would like always be not there. So like I became like the fill-in guy. And then the guy would go away for like Christmas, and then I only lived an hour from the school when their school wasn't in session, so I would like drive back to Cleveland and do that show. But that show happened to be like Friday nights. So like there was you know, Friday nights for a hip hop show was an impeccable time to have a 10 o'clock show, especially back then.
Yep.
So our college radio shows became similar, like not similar, not like how you can't compare anything to what was going on here, like because this was a whole other universe and ecosystem of. But for Cleveland, if we had 62 listeners on a Friday night, but they were all locked the fuck into what we were doing, that was like a wild success because the community wasn't that big, and because there was probably only 300 people that wanted to hear native tongue records on a Friday night, but if I had 62 or 65 of them, it's not bad. It's like 20% of the market, right? And so that led to the show getting bigger and bigger. When I said bigger, I mean like 70, you know, like there was no metrics, you know. We felt like we were stars, you know, because people would call in and request songs. But like, you don't know, I don't think we ever had more than 100 listeners at a time. That would have been like the best we ever did. But you just felt getting that instant feedback from people, like, what'd you like better, like Muddy Waters or the new Wu-Tang album? Like people calling, like you just felt that community and connectedness, and so I loved that. And then to answer your question, there was this is actually one of my favorite DJing memories. The first thing I ever really DJed in public for like a real crowd was summer of '97, and De La had come to Cleveland to do the Stakes is High tour. And I'd never really DJ'd in public like that, but the promoter knew my show from being the guy in Cleveland that was playing that shit.
He was one of the people calling in.
Yeah, maybe. and they booked me to like open for them.
Wow.
And I wasn't like a show DJ. I wasn't like, I didn't know, like now if I open for a rapper that I know how to play for an audience, like, you know, all the things. I didn't know that, but I just, aesthetically, I knew the right music to play. I didn't know how to do it, but I knew what to play. And so I went there and I opened for them, and I don't remember how it went. I'm sure it was technically very bad. I'm sure musically it was fine. But it was awesome. So that's my first thing. It was just, you know, I'd put in the work for a year doing that college radio show, so that led me the opportunity to make $30 and bring my own turntables, you know, and pay for parking. But who gives a fuck? It was like opening for De La in Cleveland, like from one of my favorite albums of all time. And fun fact is that, like, I remember afterward, I still have all the pictures. I have like all these pictures of me with Paz and you know, Mace and Dave. And now I'm kind of like friends with Paz, and like it's like weird that, like, not like close friends, but like, you know, like we're like music friends. And he's such a nice guy, and he's like such a great dad, and like he knows the shit that my kid does, and like from Instagram, and it's just like when he sees me with my kid, he's like, it's just like it's like a weird bookending of life, right? Where it's just like they were my gateway to like my first stage. But like I took my kid to like meet them at like they did an in-store at like Rough Trade, and it's just like it's wild how life works. And he talks to my son, and he's just like, your dad is cool, and I'm just like, and my son's like, my dad's not cool. But it's just like, but you think back to like '97, right? But the story about that I wanted to say, dating back to my like inferiority complexes and all that, is I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was so new. I was so novice. I was nervous. I didn't understand anything about the world that I was going into. I didn't know this would be my world either. It was just my hobby. I was gonna just do some other shit with my life. It wasn't even attainable for me. The thought of being a DJ, like there was no DJs from Cleveland that did it as a full-on job, you know? But I remember Mace was like, they were leaving. He was just like, you did your thing. And he wrote his number down on a piece of paper, and he handed it to me, and I just remember like there was like this hole in this window in the wall, and he passed it through, and I remember like freaking out, and then I kept that number for like years. I was too scared to call. You know what I mean? And there was no emails. This was like '97. Email. He definitely didn't have email in '97. I had a college email, had a bunch of numbers. You know, it wasn't like now. So there was no like aggressive way to communicate.
It wasn't text.
It was just a fucking call.
Yep.
You know, maybe to a cell, maybe to a landline. We don't even know. And I never called. And then like years later, I called. The number was like you know. But I was too, you know. And it's probably good I didn't call. But like, I just think about that all the time. Like, you know, like how crazy that was. And like, should I have called? Well, at least I did a good job. But then you know, you fast forward 30 years, and like I know those guys, and it's just like it's just kind of fun. And then like you know, actually it's really crazy. Like I just hung a picture up in my office. I took my wife to see them at Lincoln Center a couple weeks ago, and we I didn't even know the show was going on. We got tickets like on StubHub like last minute for like $80, got front row. It was incredible. We were canceled. We were supposed to go to dinner. We canceled it. Thank God, my wife. I'm like, we can skip dinner and go see that. So she's like, okay. Anyways, we're like in the front row, and then like Pos sees us, and like he like waves at my wife, and then like while he's rapping, he like grabs my hand, and he's like doing, you know, like when rappers on stage are he's rapping, but he's moving his hand like with my fist is in his fist, and then the photographer like captured like him rapping, and you don't see my face at all, but you just see like our hands like gripped, and I was like, please send me that photo. And like I framed it and put it in my office because it's just like it's so symbolic to me because you don't even see me in it. It's just my hand. But that photo, that one photo, symbolizes my entire career, and I loved it. Like my body's not in it. It's literally just my hand, and it's him being one of the greatest who ever did it. But that photo like symbolizes my entire career path. You know?
Nah, give me chills. I mean, that's what I love about this culture in general, right? Is it's that energy that we connect on. Right?
It's beautiful, man.
Yeah, and then like even listening to your story is great. I love these things because I know people from a certain space, and then after that, right? But not how we got here. And I love to hear these things that just kind of happen, where you know you're on your path.
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, when that happened, I was as freaked out and as excited in 25 as I was in 97.
Yeah.
It's the exact same level of excitement. Yeah. Even though, like, you know, it still made me feel exactly as a fan and as a student of this, and as just the privilege of being part of this culture. Like, I'm just like, it was the exact same. I might even have been more excited.
Right.
You know.
I mean, because you're grateful probably as well, right?
It's like wow, we get to like wow, you know, like wow.
And you get to know these people on that kind of level. It's different because, like you said, they're one of the greatest to do it. Like they're incredible, like incredibly talented, incredibly intelligent, incredibly captivating, incredible performers,
incredibly nice guys.
Yeah, and then just nice human beings, right? And they're always smiling, they're always joking, they're always laughing. Like even, you know, R.I.P. Dave. It's like even through that, you know what I'm saying? Like you could see their love for it still go.
They don't get enough respect for how important. I mean, they do, but like, you know, they're up. When people are always like, when people talk about like the groups that did the most impact for hip hop outside of hip hop, like they're always like, obviously Tribe gets mentioned, Outkast gets mentioned, Beastie Boys get mentioned, maybe the Roots get mentioned for like this newer generation because of the Tonight Show and all that. But like, I just think De La is up absolutely in that same thing, and I feel like. Maybe if they didn't do the numbers like a Tribe did or a Beastie Boys did, but from an impact perspective, I would argue, you know, I mean, you really don't have any of those other groups. I mean, obviously the Beastie Boys got first, but like you don't have like that lineage of different genres and different vibes. Like they just created like so much stuff.
Yeah. And they were so different. They were so unique in their own way, and they were so 100% them. Right?
Do you ever think where hip hop would be if they didn't exist? Because they showed you that you could be so different. You could wear what you want. You could act like you want what you want. You could rap how you want. You could sample what you want. You could perform for any audience you want, any day of the week you want, even if it's a different audience Monday through Friday, and just still be yourself and be authentic and crush it the whole way. Like where would we even have a Pharrell? Would we have a Kanye? Would we have a, you know, because it's wild when you think about that. So I hope they get in the Rock Hall one day. They're always there paying tribute to everybody else. Like let's get them in there.
They got to get there. I mean, I thought about it from a Native Tongues perspective also, because I always look at like the 90s where we went from culture to business, right? It was that huge transition there. And the whole Native Tongues thing kind of like fell to the wayside, like the positivity, the unity, the peace, the love, and it became shiny suits and money and, you know, big cars and big chains and everything else. And it was like, man, like what if we never had any of that? You know, like what would this culture look like? I don't want to think about it because I still listen. Like I was just listening to a Native Tongues mix last night, like on a playlist on on Apple, and it was like, yo, like they've influenced so many different people in so many different ways. I mean, Dante, Mos Def, like it's so many people that came through that, and yeah, I couldn't imagine them hip hop without their contributions, bro, like at all. All right, so you go from the De La show, you're on college radio. When did the mixtapes start happening and those ideas?
So the college radio thing did well for me. Our city got a commercial station around that time when I was graduating college. There was like a big like.
Wait, your city meaning Youngstown?
Cleveland.
Oh, Cleveland.
Yeah,
okay.
I was long gone from Youngstown at that point, and they had an urban station, but they didn't play a lot of hip hop. They only played hip hop on like Friday nights or whatever.
Yep.
And so we got like a real hip hop station, which your mileage may vary on what we called that then, even back then. And I was able to finagle myself the 5 o'clock mix.
Okay.
Now, I didn't deserve that mix as far as like talent yet at that time. And I didn't deserve that mix as far as like seniority and the lineage of Cleveland DJs, both good and bad. Like, there were other people who should have had that before me. Mm-hmm. And I'm fully aware of that. However, what I had was like the ability to like connect dots, which is such an important skill as an artist, as a creative, as an entrepreneur. And I took a lot of flack for that back then, for being the guy that's like, okay, well, we all knew that station was coming. You're waiting for the program director to come to your club and hear you? Fuck that. I'm gonna make him a business plan and walk in there and, like, this is why you should hire me. I'm gonna, you want him to come hear you at the strip club? Well, I'm gonna make him a mix. Mm-hmm. And all of the things, like, and I was like, I didn't necessarily have the right skills from a historical perspective, but I had the right skills from an entrepreneurial perspective. Mm-hmm. And then the skills caught up. Like it took me a year, but like I got to the point where like I deserved to be there just as much as anybody else. But like I definitely got there first and foremost because of my brain and not my hands. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that was a huge lesson because like I learned it, whether it's in DJing, whether it's in hip hop, whether it's in any aspect of life, you gotta like always open the doors that aren't gonna open and go around. You can't go in this door, well, we're gonna go around this door, and you can't do this, well, I'm gonna find this way. And you can do that with your skills. If that doesn't work, you gotta do it with your brain. If that doesn't work, you gotta do it through your relationships. And if that doesn't work, you gotta do it through like sheer force. But you have different ways of getting somewhere. Like my kid's school's right here. We go a different way every fucking day. He's like, why don't we go the same way? I'm like, why? It's a grid. It fucking doesn't matter. Like we're gonna get there. And it's the same thing when you make like career decisions. Like you have to like go. Some days we go the ways where we want to go to a coffee shop. We want to go to the grocery. You can get there many ways. And so that taught me that. And I took a lot of flack for that.
Really?
Yeah, because like, and rightfully so. There were people who were better than me, and there were people that had paid more dues than me at that point. So it was what it was, But I got there very fast once I got there. And but what was funny was, I didn't know how to play commercial music at that time.
Okay.
Even when I did clubs, the only commercial music I was playing was like the East Coast stuff. So it was easy to play like Jay-Z and Nas records, Biggie records, in the clubs because it was like fun. And it was like, but this was 2000 in Cleveland. You had to play all like the Master P stuff and the Cash Money stuff and R&B stuff. And I'd look at R&B if it wasn't like, a
remix with the rapper.
Yeah. Or even if it wasn't like Groove Theory or like, stuff like that. Like I'd be like, this isn't, I don't want to play like Next Too Close. This isn't a fucking wedding, but like I learned, but when I would think about, and I don't have any recordings of this stuff, but I would just do like dumb shit, like play like Master P, make them say, then mix like a Company Flow record at like 5 o'clock. And like the PD would be like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'd be like, I'm still having my college show, so I'm still thinking like, well, I'm just going to give everybody a little something. But my 65 people were not listening to that drive time mix. There was probably 5,000, 10,000 people listening to that. They did not want to, nor did they need to, nor should they, in retrospect, like I say this now. I was rebellious at the time, like they need to hear how good LP is. They didn't. I can assure you they didn't. They needed to hear Little Zane, or whatever that dude's fucking name was. You know what I mean? That's what they needed to hear, right? I didn't know that. I was very ignorant to that. And so like in retrospect, I probably would have done a better job had I realized that. And then when you start doing clubs, then that led to me being like heavy in the clubs in Ohio. And then you learn real quick, like, yeah, that Shabam Sadiq record is not going to pop off at 2 o'clock in the morning at a place called Mirage on the Water. It's just not going to happen as much as I wanted to. And I would be doing dumb shit like taking the acapella and putting it over like, dun, 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 dun. Nope. Like, let's just keep the main thing the main thing. So I learned a lot about how to play for an audience at that time, and it just kind of kept steamrolling and like rolling and just going and going. And to your point about the mixtapes, the story I told you about like how I was able to get on the station, and even that's actually kind of how I also had to get on my college radio show. I kind of like worked the angles and stuff. It wasn't like I went like applied. I had to go like backdoor through it. For mixtapes, all the labels, now like the internet is starting, and internet's like it's like a thing now. It's like early 2000s. Like you can get MP3s and stuff like that. But I was never gonna have more exclusives than like a Clue or whatever, and I was never gonna have like the creative talent of like a Green Lantern or anything like that. But I was able to like use my little bit of influence in Cleveland to be like the poor man's version of both. So like if Clue had a mixtape that had 100% exclusives, I could use my mix show connects to get one exclusive, right? So I'd be like, oh, you want me to play your Lil Zane record? Is that his name?
I mean, that's a rapper.
Yeah, like great. But when, I don't know who else is on your label, but like when so-and-so comes out, let me have like the B side of that. Like, and they could have honestly given that to the me in every city and nobody would have fucking known. But I'd be like, great, I'll play, payola was like illegal, though we all did it. But like, rather than give me $50 or like a gift card to Best Buy, whatever labels were doing at the time, just give me a song. Or then it got even better because then like artists would come to Cleveland and they'd be like, oh, you got to meet so-and-so, he's in town. And I'd be like, great. Now I'm on the radio like now I switched to 9 o'clock mix at night. So I have more freedom to play what I want. And I had a weekend show and I was doing all the clubs. So while I was in grad school, it was a wild time. And so while I'm doing this, I'm like, okay, you want me to play your records on this and you want this and you want your shit in the club. Great. You're in town. Come, you want to take me to dinner? Fuck dinner. Come to my house. We're going to record a freestyle. We're going to do this. And you're going to give me half hour of your time. Why do we need to eat chicken fingers? Let's just make a song. And so I ended up getting like acapellas from like all sorts of people. Like we had stuff from like Prodigy and like G-Unit and Jewels, all these people whenever they come to Cleveland. And none of these people would remember any of this, but like it was Cleveland. They didn't have anything to do. Like they were just in the hotel all day. They went to you go to the sneaker store, then you wait for the club. And so they're like, sure, I'll go rap. That's what I do. Yep. And so I was able to acquire all this stuff that I had, like, that enabled me to really create some really awesome stuff way beyond the scope of what I should have had access to in Cleveland, Ohio in the early 2000s. But I learned to be a little more bold in what I was asking. Like, it wasn't just exciting enough for me to be like, oh, I had lunch with a rapper or a rapper came to my club. You're gonna do that shit anyways. But like, if you're here, like, let's do something cool. And then that led to like, when artists came to town, they knew like, oh, you gotta come by and do this and come by and do that. And that is what enabled me to create mixtapes that got out of Ohio, got out of the Midwest. And then I remember I would come to New York and like I would see them very rarely, but once in a blue moon, I would see a bootleg in New York of my shit. And I was not heavy in the streets here in New York. Like none of that was happening, but there were a few sporadic instances where the shit somehow made it here. And that just felt like, you just felt like you made it, like, it's just like amazing. Imagine like you make, someone's actually technically stealing money from you, but like but who cares? Because you feel like it, and then you go back home and you're like, I'm going to keep at this. Because if I got one mixtape bootleg to New York this year, maybe next year I can get 2. Maybe next year I can get 3.
It's like gold. And
maybe the right person hears it. And then, that's how that happened. And it was slow because the internet was like slow and there was no social, this was slower than in real time. This was like real time, but at like 0.5 speed. It was just like slow.
But it's interesting to hear again because of you said insecurities before and everything else, but you're bold in your business acumen, like in how you approach things.
In retrospect,
Yeah.
but not. But in the moment, I just think I was probably just making the best choices I could make of my options. But yeah, in retrospect, I could look back and draw a complete lineage between everything from the garbage dumpster
Yep.
to the college radio show to getting these freestyles to the stuff I'm doing now. It's all absolutely connected. But I'd be lying if I told you I knew that was
No,
happening.
we don't have that, but again, that's why these conversations are interesting, right? Having the reflection and looking back in these things, you're like, wow, this makes all perfect sense, right? But if I was to plan this out, probably would have stumbled all over the place.
Yeah.
Right?
The best plans are the ones that you don't plan.
Exactly. What was your major in college?
Marketing.
Oh,
So yeah.
So see,
it all kind of like
right?
But I wanted to do finance. I was like, wow, I'm bad with money. I'm bad at math. Like, let's skip this.
I mean, I think to an extent, right? Probably bad with other people's money. I feel like you're a lot better with your money in a way.
I don't think so.
No.
I can't go to that conversation. That's you don't drink, so that's a drink conversation.
All right. So, what was the first mixtape that really took off for you? Because you had a few series also that were really dope and are still heralded now.
I don't remember. Like, I mean, there was a few things. Once I was able to achieve like mixtape notoriety, and then also I was very blessed to be the beneficiary of the internet coming of age as the career was coming of age.
Yep.
So, whereas when I started, there weren't blogs and all that stuff. By the time 06, 07, 08, now all your shit's on all websites and all of that stuff. So, I wasn't just mail ordering a box of mixtapes to a store in Boston and a store in Tampa and a store in Wyoming. I'm sending 1,000 mixtapes to Mix Unit and all these websites, and you're getting 20 cents of CD, what I mean? But like, so what? Now your shit's going to all those places, right?
Yep.
So when I was able to like achieve some sort of like notoriety for being known as a mixtape DJ, I was able to then delve down into like really being creative and doing more concepts, because that to me was much more exciting. It was not going to be very exciting to me to like out-clue a clue.
Yep.
Like and there was already 50 people under him that were trying to do that and still doing a way better job than I ever could. So I was like, let me just try to do concept stuff and make that work for me. So I did a all Dilla project with Busta Rhymes in like 07 maybe, called Diligence, which people still listen to this day. We did a Jay-Z Coldplay mashup thing that was right after Danger Mouse did the Grey album, and so it's the second most popular like Jay-Z mashup album of all time. It's like funny because I once sat next to Danger Mouse at like a dinner, and I was like, the only time I ever met him, and I was like, hey man, nice to meet you. I was like, fun fact, I have the second most popular Jay-Z mashup album of all time. He was like, oh really? What's that? And I was just like, I felt so deflated. I was like, never mind.
He's like, I only know about
Pass
mine.
the bread, please. It just was like, it was great.
When you said it, he didn't know it?
I had no fucking clue.
Oh, wow.
And it's fine, because like, it's fine. Because I've been on airplanes where people like pull it out and show me and then the other one that really happened was, and it changed the course of my career, is Jazzy Jeff and I did 11 volumes of our summertime series. Yep. And you never know who hears these things. And, we haven't even done them for 5 years. This is actually I think the 15th year anniversary of when we did it, when we started them, which is crazy. We're gonna put them on Apple Music, by the way. So this summer they should all be streaming like legally and officially. Which
Try
is really
to do
cool.
a 15th anniversary with Jeff.
Maybe.
I'll make that happen, buddy.
But or we'll probably do something. At least maybe I'll go down and do like he does all those amazing live streams. But I was playing basketball with Miles, my kid, a couple of months ago in the fall, and this is a great story. Jason Sudeikis walks in with his family. And he lives, I think he's bi-coastal, but he lives a couple blocks from me. And we had met like at a school fundraiser or something years ago. I didn't know he remembered me at all. And he's like, Mick. And I say this not like in a braggy way, but I was just like, he's like, and I was just like, how do you, like, so we're chatting, and I was just like, and he pulls out his phone and he shows me like the whole Summertime series. And I was like,
he's a hip hop guy. You can tell.
Yeah, but think about that. Like that's like for me when you make things thinking that it's gonna go. Like I know you're gonna like it, and I know you might download it or like whatever the case may be. And this is a project that, by the way, we haven't even done one in 5 years. Like right, it's not a new property. It's done. And for somebody who's like that I look up to, just to like randomly you know, and it has nothing to do with me either. It's like it's obviously like mostly like the fact that like Jeff's involved, and also the music is timeless, and then I did my little part. But the fact that it connected enough with like him, like you know, that guy has no business speaking to me if he doesn't want to, like, or listening to my shit. Like, he could do whatever he wants. He could call Questlove and just be like, make me a playlist of like, you know, like, but when you realize that these things that you make, and we make them, and this is true for any creatives, and this is where I'm going to with this. And I talk to like a lot of young DJs. I've been doing like these like these lunches, like all these DJs want to like pick my brain. I'm like, sure, if we go to the breakfast spot right by my house, we'll do it. You know, and just like, you never know when you're making something, like who it's gonna hit, and you can make it now, and it might not happen. So somebody might not discover it for like 5 years, or you just never really know. So if you're a DJ or you're a musician or you're an artist, like 99 people could hate your shit, but like one person could like it, and it doesn't have. And now we're in this culture where you post a picture and you got to see how many likes it gets right now.
Yeah.
Right now. And my son's always like, how many likes did it get? And I'm like, yo, you're 9. Then it's higher than you can count, but it's not what it should be. But you know what? Who cares? You know, I try to tell them that, like, it doesn't matter. But it's like, you know, obviously, like the way the algorithm is set up, like the more likes you get, then the better chance it has to like keep showing up in people's feeds, and then more people like it, and it becomes a snowball effect. And my thing is like, yo, whether it's a picture you put on your grid, whether it's a song that you create, whether it's a mixtape you make, or something that you paint, as long as it's out there, if somebody's gonna eventually find it, they will find it. Because I'm doing these DJ videos with my kid right now that are kind of like going fake viral on my page, but I still have all these other pictures that like don't do shit, but like, who cares? Because if one day in 3 years somebody goes back and looks at my feed and sees a picture of me and my wife talking about something that resonates with them, that might be a person that's like, yo, I really fuck with this guy, I'm gonna hire him.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with the things that are like popping off on social. Like, and it's the same thing if like you make a song, and like now, especially because everything lives digital all the time, you just might be searching for songs that sample Portishead and that were made in 19, like whatever, and like you just find it, and you could find anything whenever you want. So there's never been a better time to just continuously make stuff and put it out there, and no matter what it does. So as long as you're doing it like for you, because somebody will find it, and then that will, you know, and the great things will happen from that. And it's really cool. Like, that we've never lived in an era where stuff has a permanence.
Yeah. Everything, you either were there, you saw it, or it disappeared.
That's what. So I was telling people, like, please, like, do your shit. Don't not do your shit because no one's liking it or listening to it or whatever. Because what's the worst case that you have a really amazing, you know, portfolio to show people?
Yep.
Like, you don't have to carry your portfolio in a thing to show somebody your art, or you don't have to go do a talent show to show somebody your music. You could be like, check out my SoundCloud. Who gives a fuck if there's 3 plays on each of those things? Because when you look at it in the aggregate, you have an incredible body of work. And that's that. And that's the same thing with people's social. That's the same thing with people's all sorts of stuff. Like, do your creative stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
And be consistent.
Don't stop doing it, because it's like, it's the overall thing.
Yep. How much was a full circle moment? Because it was parents just don't understand, right? And then getting to do that whole series with Jeff.
Yeah. And I mean, and so I became a DJ because of that album, ultimately, because there was so much DJing stuff on it. And so, yeah, getting to do that project, those projects with him, absolutely made me realize that it's like, you know, again, it's like everything is in its right place. And then even now, it's like, you know, I'm friends with his son, and like his son is meant, you know, he knows about my son, and it's just weird. It's cool.
It's
like,
cool.
it just shows you that like life just keeps going. Yeah. And so, I don't know, just do creative stuff, see what happens.
But to go back to like what you just said, it's just, you just keep going, you just keep trying, and then all these things start happening. And then, so, all right, so you moved to New York. Well, actually, you were the Cavs DJ for a while too, right?
I was very much, same story actually to the radio thing. You know, just like I was the beneficiary of like the internet happening for my mixtapes. Like, our entire state was the beneficiary of a ping pong ball called the NBA draft lottery when LeBron got drafted. And if that ping pong ball went any other way, he can go to Denver, he can go to Miami, he can go to wherever the case may be. Who was the team that got Darko? Detroit. Like, I think he was number 2, right? Wasn't it like Carmelo was 3, Darko was 2, LeBron was 1? I think that's how that draft went. That. And you know, we got lucky, right? And he went to Cleveland, and I was like, yo, this is about to be different here, because there's like, we haven't had any. That's never happened in the NBA. Yeah. And our city just transformed overnight, and all these people were in town that were never there. All these brands were in town that were never there, and I was like, this is a great moment. I gotta figure this out. But now though, now I'm deserving. This wasn't like before where I was like new. Now I've been in clubs for years. I've been on the radio for years. Like I'm the guy doing if not all the things in Cleveland, most at that time. So I was like, hey, you guys doing parties? I went to your parties. Hey, you guys need a DJ at the game? I want to DJ the game. There's like, we don't have any money. The Cavs are like, we have no money. We have like $200 and we're going to put you in the fucking rafters. I was like, done. Doesn't matter. Yep. Because when I go anywhere else, when I would come to New York to meet with record labels and stuff, yo, I'm DJing all the Cavs games. Mm-hmm. They don't give a fuck that I'm in not even the 300 seats. I was like, you know what I mean? Like I took freight elevators, like the first year, like a dolly. It was a union building too. I had to get there early, unload my own turntables. You know, like this was not like some luxury shit. Yeah. But it got to the point that they bought stuff, they kept moving it down, blah, 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 and everything worked out really well. But like, it was putting I was recognizing when good things are happening around you so you could take advantage of it. So making your own luck in a way. Yep. And then recognizing the skill sets you've learned in previous endeavors in order to make that luck happen for you as well. So I was like, okay, let me pitch these people on, why should I be the guy doing your parties? Why should I be the guy doing your games? Yep. I definitely walked into the Cavs office with a fucking PowerPoint and showed them that shit. You know what I mean? Like, this is why you need me. Yeah. Same thing I do now when I'm trying to pitch social deals and all sorts of other shit. Like, I want a book deal one day. Like, I'm gonna do the exact same shit. Yep. Same shit I was doing then. But like, also recognizing I'm the beneficiary of that ping pong ball. Mm-hmm. And not just me, but an entire city, an entire quadrant of a state brought billions of dollars into that state simply because of that. And so all of our lives changed. Mm-hmm. My life changed. Dan Gilbert's lives changed. All those guys LeBron played with changed. All the bodegas and wing spots and bars around the arena changed. Mm-hmm. The airport changed. Everything changed. Everything got way better.
It's crazy when you think about
because of that. And so I'm just really grateful, I could tell you 1,000% with a certain certainty that like if that didn't happen, I'm not DJing today.
Really?
I'm DJing for fun in a sports bar. You know what I mean?
So DJ for the Mavs was really, for the Cavs was really that for you?
It enabled me to coupled with my radio relationships, to build brand relationships that coupled me the ability to move to New York and set my career down the path it went. Without that happening, I'm just the radio DJ in Cleveland who's still trying to play, quality records at 5 o'clock. You know what I mean? Like I don't meet people from Coca-Cola and Nike and all these people who was like, oh, well, we're doing a thing in New York. When you move to New York, holler at me. I don't know those people. Those people don't talk to mix show DJs. Yep. Those, they talk to DJs who are doing cool shit. And because of what was happening in our city, I went from doing just the shit that we had to cool shit. Yeah. Totally. Same stuff, by the way, just the optics were different. So I was, fortunate to be in that ecosystem. And then that led, for those opportunities to happen. If that didn't happen, what am I making? $80,000 a year in Cleveland DJing? I'd rather go get a that's not sustainable for raising a family in any state. I mean it is, you know what I'm saying, but I'm not trying to say it's not, but for what I wanted to do, that wouldn't have been doing a service to all I knew I could offer the world if that was the peak of what I could have did. But my roads opened up tremendously because of that. Yeah, there's no way I'm DJing as a career if that didn't happen. 1,000%, no way.
That's wow, man. One person.
I mean, what a person.
I mean, yeah.
But
he's an anomaly.
But it's not just me. It's all the people. Mm-hmm. It's sports anchors. It's Nike execs. It's marketing agents. It just keeps going and going and going and going. And that's just for that guy's ecosystem. Imagine for all the other people like that when these things happen. It's we have to appreciate the fact that we know how to take advantage of these. Take advantage sounds like it's a bad thing. Just put yourself in these situations. But we also have to acknowledge that we're very lucky and blessed to be that's not gonna happen for me again. But while it did happen, thank you God. Let me ride this out and see where it can go.
I mean, once in a generation, right? That doesn't happen a lot.
No.
Man, I mean, he's changed so many. I mean, you even ended up doing other parties with him after that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done anything in a long time, but what those guys have done with their business is the coolest thing I've ever seen in the history of business. Yeah. Empower your friends, and not just empower them, but educate them to be really dope at what they do.
Yep.
Because we can all have our friends do shit, and you know how that goes. Like that goes very bad.
Yeah.
But to empower the right friends, and then educate those right friends, and you know, enlighten those friends to be able to like actually succeed, and then let them do that. Nobody's ever done that in the history of business or society. I mean, even I think they probably tried to do that like in the Bible, and that didn't even go well. You know, like ask how did that go? You know, like ask some of those disciples what happened.
I mean, the four
But,
horsemen.
like, you know, it's just like that story has been written 1,000 times, but it's never turned out like this. It's a one-on-one magical thing. But I think that like what that has done to teach other people how to be entrepreneurial and how to empower your friends and your community and your people and just do that. Like what that's probably done so much for people, like creativity, self-esteem, hustle, ambition. To see that situation, it's really in all walks of life. It's just fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, to see where they've grown is amazing.
It's
I mean,
fantastic.
Maverick. I mean, Rich. Like Rich is like the #1 sports agent now.
I have
And,
so much like hometown pride for those guys.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like I'm biased, but like you know, it's just like they repped for all of us and put all of us in great positions.
Yep.
And they still do it to this day to people.
Yeah. No, 100%. So you get to New York, and then now you become this celebrity DJ. I know you don't. I know you don't like that.
I never understood when people say celebrity DJ, because that means you DJ for celebrities or you are a celebrity. Because I think like people use it interchangeably.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's the perception and the way people look at these things, right? You definitely DJ for celebrities, but I think to a lot of people, you're considered a celebrity as a DJ. You may not look at it that way.
I'm not, because like I don't look at it like that way. For me, because I kind of never chose to overly celebritize myself. There were a lot of things I could have done at the peak of my career that could have made that more enticing. Where like I could have said, let me double down on trying to do more like Vegas stuff, or let me try to be more popping in the clubs, blah blah blah. But I was like, you know what? For a long-term perspective, like let me like find what my niche is, and my niche is like still what I'm doing this day, like working with brands in a brand friendly way, but I'm still ironically the exact same person, and I'm still only playing 90% of the music I play to this day is shit I love, which is like I'm so proud of.
Okay.
I will delve into a garbagey pit if I have to, but I don't have to very often.
Is that part of your pitch? Like
No, I don't say, hey, I only play music for 46-year-old dads. Like that's like.
I don't mean that, but I'm saying I'm gonna come here. I play you. You're hiring me because I'm playing what I love.
mean, I think people know that, right? But like when I do All-Star Weekend shit, like I'm definitely showing that I can play more than like what I want to play. But also, like, let's be real. Like I'm not afraid to ask for help in those situations too. I got a bunch of young DJ guys who like ask me for advice, and then when I got to go do these things, I say to them, hey, I need to know the 10 biggest records right now for a 23-year-old, like at 2 in the morning. And you know, I'm not an idiot. Like I know like 3 of them, and one of them my kid will have told me about because of the algorithm. And then I don't know the other 6, and I'll play them, and then I'll like move on, and that's fine. So it's a blessing that like we live in this age of access where I can just get all those songs, right? But also it's also a blessing that we came from an era where the stuff we listened to was slightly more timeless. You know, whether it's just the artists became frozen in a period of time pre-social where they became larger than life, or maybe it's the songs that we loved are now being sampled again by a new generation of artists, which makes people live. Maybe it's just the fact that everything is much more accessible, so my kid could listen to the Beatles and Kendrick and 310 Baby or whatever his name is, and then also listen to like Imagine Dragons and listen to De La Soul, and he doesn't know the years. He doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah,
he just listens to it. They could all be 22 for all he knows, and he loves it, and that's cool. So that enables like stuff to like kind of stay a little bit more current as well. I was talking to a DJ friend of mine yesterday, and he's like, "Yo, like he's 15 years younger than me," and he said, "My set." He plays a lot of current hip hop and stuff like that as well. But he's just like, he's like, my sets are from like 2003, 2004, 2005 until now. He's like, I kind of play it all interchangeably. So he's like, I'll play all this new stuff, and then but he's like, that stuff, even though it's 20 years ago, it still feels sonically like it fits with the new stuff. But if you think about that, let's say 2003, right? Go back 20 years, 83. You weren't playing like Cold Crush Brothers when you were playing Usher. You know, you remind me. Like those those were not in the same wheelhouse. And also the artists that we listened to that were big in '83, which I was 5, but like, you know, they weren't relevant in 2003, especially from a hip hop perspective. You know, they just weren't. Like, there was no like Sugar Hill Gang resurgence in 2003, right? But Jay, Nas, Diddy, until recently, Usher, Mary, all these people that had Pharrell, all these people, Nori, all these people that had hits in '03, Busta, like they could make a hit today.
Yep.
And some less than others, but every year Busta has one record that goes way beyond like anybody from his generation has ever done. Usher still makes mega hits. You know, it's just like, it's interesting sonically because like those artists, like it doesn't seem like 20 years sonically, and you're seeing it in the reaction from people who are way younger than us. Yeah. But it just wasn't like that in '03. Imagine playing, you know, The Message.
Yeah.
No,
it's not happening.
Just like, it wasn't happening, but you know, you could still play like Jadakiss, We're Gonna Make It. You know,
right now.
And it still hits like to a different generation, and it's really cool. It makes DJing very fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, I always call the 90s the translation generation, or Generation X, right? And like, I don't know what we would do without the 90s. The 90s were so interesting, and they were the bridge to a lot of things, right? We can still appreciate all of that stuff, but we can still move forward and still be in the now and still be relevant and still know what's going on. Like, it's a different time. What's some of your favorite things you've done as far as DJing, like places you've been?
I mean, I'm kind of at the point now where every time I get to do anything, I just feels like a real blessing, because I can't believe I'm still doing this and it's still like going well. You know, it's like my wife's expression, like we've been together like 4 or 5 years, and every day she's like, "This is going well, isn't it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's going well." It's like a little joke, but like I feel like the same way about my career. Like, it's going well. This little hobby, it turned out well. I don't know, man. Like we're looking at 30 years of this now, which is like nuts. Yeah. But like maybe 20 years as a full-time job. No, 25 years as a full-time job. 15 years as a like very like legitimate, like New York, been based here. You know, 17 years actually, which is crazy. Wow, I'm almost a New York adult. Like, it's pretty wild, right? I don't know, I've been on continents that I'd never have any business being on. I still haven't been to Africa, but I'd love to go one day. I want to bring my kid though, because I want him to see it. The best gigs for me now are gigs where, it's like, I use this example all the time. I either want to, like, when I leave a gig now, I want one of 3 things to happen. And I might have told you this the other day when we talked, I want one of 4 things to happen. I either want to have just played a bunch of great shit and really just felt just connected.
Yep.
Or I want to just make a lot of fucking money. Mm-hmm. Or I want to leave with a potential new friend of somebody that's actually a great connection. Whether that leads to money or not in the future may be great, but maybe it's just a great human being connection. I'm at the age now where that's a win, because I think I fucking hate most people. And then there's also like this 4th thing where it's like, maybe I meet somebody who has a kid that's my kid's age, and they become friends, and they, you know, like maybe there's like a play date for my kid out of it, or maybe it's like a random person like that lives in Brooklyn that I didn't know that, like, and our, you know, like our kids can play about. Like, that to me is very exciting. That's just like very valuable, because I actually don't like a lot of like my kids' friends. Like, but some of them I do, some of them I love. But like, you know, and I kind of just, I try not to go into anything now with like an end all be all approach to what constitutes success, because I've went to gigs where I've gotten paid nothing and had so much fun that I would do it again. I've got gigs where I've got paid nothing and had no fun. I've got gigs where I've got paid several months of rent and I had a lot of fun. I went to gigs with several months of rent, no fun. You know, like, so like you can't really put a finite gauge on what these things are. And so I just kind of like go into everything for just like what it's gonna be, you know? Like, I hope I can have a lot of fun and feel creatively fulfilled. That's not all the time. Yeah. I hope I can make enough money to provide for my family. Thankfully I can always provide for my family, but not every gig provides at that family providing level. Sometimes it just does, sometimes it's just, you know, it's not, you know, but I still want to do it sometimes because I love what I do. And then sometimes, like I said, it's just for the relationships and for the connectivity of the whole thing. And so when you don't, you know, go in wanting one specific outcome. You definitely, like, there's no way I do a gig now and I don't get some sort of outcome I want.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. But
it would be very hard for me not to land on one of those 4.
But you
Anything
position
I
that.
do, right?
Like
but it's a mind state thing too.
Okay.
Like, you could look at all of that completely different. I could look into like, okay, I didn't like what I was playing, the money. What type of gig would I do where like one of those things didn't happen, where I didn't meet somebody nice, or I didn't get paid a decent amount of money, or I didn't play a record I like. Like, I'm framing this so that there's always a positive outcome.
Dope.
You know, it's like what you were talking about earlier. Like you can, it's like how you just choose to like look at these situations with like the person in the traffic or the person driving because their pet's sick. Like you can frame things in a way where you can come out the winner.
Yep.
No matter what. Not like in a delusional way, but just like, you know, how are you measuring success? Like, I know what I want my success to look like,
Yep.
and it's going to be one of those 4 things.
Yep.
You know, and it's like I'd have to really fuck it up to not hit one of those 4.
Yeah.
Because they're all different. They're 4 complete different silos. You know, and so like I'll get one of those. Maybe I'll get 2. Maybe I'll get 3. The best gigs you get all 3.
There you
You
go.
know, but
Jackpot.
like, but that doesn't have to happen, and it doesn't happen all the time. But you know, as long as one of those happen, this ship is going to keep sailing. And if the ship keeps sailing, my family's good, I'm good, my creativity's good, the landlord's happy. You know, everyone wins.
Yeah. How do you manage your mental health and being somebody insecure to somebody who's being in some pretty high profile spaces, right? When you don't always want to be that high profile guy.
It's hard, man. I've had wild mental health journeys, like crazy ones. Like, you know, you name it, I've been on it. Like, no, I don't mean like on it. Like, well, actually, it's funny. In 2008, I'm very hypochondriac. I'm very like scared of like, you know, oh, this is a pimple, I'm dying. This is an AIDS pimple. You know, like, you know, you look on like you look online, like, you know, WebMD, I blocked it.
Oh yeah,
you know,
no,
it's just
WebMD
like,
is the worst.
I'm
bro.
that person, you know, and so, you know, it's scary, right? And so like I remember in 2008, right before I moved here, actually. It's wild. This is like the first time that like I ever realized I was. Is it hypochondriac? Is that the word? Like when you see something on your, like when you have fear of like medical shit or.
Yeah. You create a medical issue.
Yeah. And I remember it was a couple months before I moved to New York. I was going to DJ my friend's birthday party in Cleveland. You know, I'd lost a little bit of weight at the time. I was feeling good. I was moving to New York. I just felt like really good. And I looked in a mirror and I saw like these little red dots on the side of my face. I remember the bathroom I was in. I just got out of the shower. I remember the whole thing. And I look in the mirror and I saw these little red dots. I'd never seen them before. By the way, there's tons of shit on your body that you've never noticed.
Yep.
And one day you'll never be able to like unsee it. And I saw these little red dots and I just, for no reason, freaked out, passed out, fainted, almost hit my head on the tub, missed it by an inch, or I'd better split my head open. Came to like a minute or 2 later, freaked the fuck out. Took a shower, you know, like went upstairs, looked up the or whatever these dots are, you know what I mean? And that was the moment my hypochondriac journey began. I never really had that before that. Whatever happened with those things, which by the way are absolutely nothing. I had a friend of mine, actually my friend that was like the RA in my freshman year who
the doctor.
The doctor, yeah.
Yep.
I call him like, bro, what are these? Like, you're good. I was like, but what that did, unfortunately, whatever gene that unlocked that moment has stayed with me like my whole life. You know, like I fainted, dude. Like I just passed the fuck out. It was wild.
Yeah,
like it's
that's
embarrassing.
Scary. It
but
was
it's like
scary,
you know?
too.
And from that moment on, I was like hyper aware of all this shit whenever something would go on in my body, to the point that I would have phantom pains in my hand and my arm. And this is all right before I moved to New York. And I went to the doctor and they're like checking me for like lupus and all these things. And like, they're just like, maybe, like, no. And then, you know, you always get like the idiot nurse who's like, oh, I know the problem. You're a fucking diabetic. And I was just like sitting in the room for 20 minutes, like freaking out. And then the doctor came in, sorry, wrong test. Like what? Like you know what I mean? Like that shit, which by the way does not help when you're in my position
at all.
And so they put me on Zoloft. You know, they put me on like these prescriptions, and I take that shit for like a year, and I still feel the same. So then I just stopped taking them because I don't want to be like reliant on chemicals to like tell me, like if I'm dying, give me all the shit. If I ever find out I'm dying, I'm doing all the organic stuff, all the healthy stuff, and give me it all. Like, let me try everything. But like, I'm not. So, and I wasn't. So like, there's no need for me to just be putting this, and it's not working, by the way, either. So why am I doing this? So like, I just stopped taking that and just started trying to like be a little bit more calm. And it worked, I guess, a little bit, but it's something I still fight and I deal with to this day. And it's wild. But like, mental health is crazy, but I didn't know at the time that was a mental health situation. Mental health wasn't, I don't even know if that phrase, I mean, it existed in 2008, but it wasn't common vernacular at the time. And then, you go through life, right? And you go through like birth of kids, you go through a miscarriage, you go through a divorce, you go through a remarriage, you go through a pandemic, you go through the loss of a parent, you go through the loss of grandparents, you go through all of these things, and then you look at it and you're like, mental health. Yeah. It's kind of important. Yeah. And I'm far from being like the voice of it, but like I went through some shit, and I went through some shit that like almost took me out. You know what I mean? Like there was a moment where I was at like a very low, and I was not going to recover from that low, and I was like, this is exclusive for you. I was like, this might be it. I might just, it was a couple years, it was 2020, beginning of 2020. I was like, I'm done. I think I'm just gonna be, it was a good time. We had a good time here. I don't want to deal with this shit anymore. This is good. I could stop here. And then that didn't happen. Like something snapped me out of it at the last possible second. And funny story for another day. Yeah. But like it was close. Yeah. It was close. It was a couple minutes away. Wow. And it didn't happen, and I'm fine. But now I try to be like, when I see other people going through what I was going through during those moments, I always say, hey, let me talk to you. Yeah. Like this doesn't have to be the end of your thing. This doesn't have to be because you went through this. It doesn't mean that your life has to be this. Yeah. Like I'm living proof that like life can turn out okay. And it's just like, so that's kind of like, that's how I approach mental health shit now, is like, I'm not gonna be posting all these little pictures and hashtagging it, and I'm not gonna like walk 74 miles for it and carry a fucking sign. That's not really me. But my thing is like, I just know a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of random people all the time. And if somebody mentions something to me that's remotely a trigger of something that maybe I went through, or maybe I was tangentially adjacent to, like, let me talk to you. Let me tell you. It's because it's amazing how many people I talk to daily. They have all sorts of issues that are very similar to things I went through, which I won't talk about on here. But like, I got my shit resolved. Yep. And it's like, I hear people saying that, and I'm like, whatever you do when you're going through whatever these situations are, like, don't let it beat you. Like, let me tell you how I worked around that. Or you could try this or try that, because there's always a path to getting your shit fixed or better, whether it means you need better, I don't know, friends or better family or better lawyers or whatever the case may be. You can solve this before you go to that outcome. Yeah. But it's very, 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 very real. And
did you have help through it, or you just figured this out on your own?
No, I didn't really tell anybody. Like, and I just now started really telling more people, because like because I'm talking to people that like are going through some shit. Yeah. And when you're going through some of the things that I went through, you're just like, and it's also, by the way, everybody can go through the exact same inputs differently. You could go through the things that I went through and it couldn't even faze you. Other people could go through things I went through and turn into a fucking serial killer and went and blew up a bus. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, everybody has different outputs for the inputs that come in, and you don't know. Yep. Everybody you just don't know what's going to happen with anybody when things happen, and that happens in a good way too. Good things can happen to you, and you can win the lottery and go blow your money. You can win the lottery and go build a school. You don't know what's going to happen until that happens to you. Yep. So you can't judge people's reactions. But now I'm just a lot more empathetic when people say, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm not thinking I have a real place here. Like if someone says that to me, I'm like, I can relate to those three things. Let me tell you, like, how you can potentially solve this. And also, by the way, don't listen to me. Like, listen to me, but also like do your own shit. Yeah. Talk to the professionals. I'm not a crisis hotline. Yeah. But if there's one thing or a couple things that I learned in my journey of going from the pit of where I was to where I am now, it's like I'm happy to share it. Because like, you know, I wish I had somebody that could have shared that shit with me. Yeah. But I didn't, and that's not anybody's fault. Because I wasn't even forthcoming of it, like with people. But it's just like, you know, it is what it is. So like, I just, you know, it's pretty deep and it's dark, but like there's a happy ending, and not everybody gets that. I got that, and you know, got a lot of shit to do here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're still here, man.
Well, I mean, this would be a very boring show without me.
It'll be me talking to the chair.
It'd just be you talking to a mask. I usually have a Mick mask, like on a stick. It's like, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, life. And then, you know, we didn't even talk about the kid. I know that's one of your favorite things in life, man.
Yeah, my kid's awesome. He like, goes to school already. Yeah, parenting is dope, dude. Parenting is like the greatest gift that you could ever. When I meet people who are like dads that like, you hear like the dads that just don't give a fuck about their kids. Yeah. Like, you just want to punch them in the face. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, your kid, like, it's just the best shit, man. It's the greatest thing ever. Like, it is. It's like, what are you thinking? You know, like my life revolves around my kid. You know, and I don't think we're gonna have any more. So it's just like every day I'm just like, this is the last day that you're gonna be, you know, 9 and 180 days. Like tomorrow's 9, you know, whatever the case may be. Like, we gotta enjoy every fucking second of it. And it informs how I parent, because I'm like, as long as like you're healthy and sane, I think, and doing like all the right things, like, let's just enjoy every day. Like, why do we have to put like, if we're having a great moment, like, and we gotta stay up late to have that great moment, fine. You can be tired tomorrow, one day. It's 4th grade. What are you learning? Like, you know what I mean? Or like last night we went to a basketball game. We got home at like 11 o'clock. You'll be fine. Yeah. Or just like, you know, all sorts of random things. Like some days, my favorite moments with my kid, and I'm sure the school wouldn't approve of this, but like, if it's a nice day and we're walking to school, like I only have my kid like half the week, 3-4 days a week, right? So like the days I have my kid, they're finite, you know. I don't have the luxury of having them 7 days, and I don't have the luxury of having multiple kids and like, you know, all of that stuff, right? So I take advantage of every second. So we have our most magical moments when we're walking to school. And if we have a day where he's just really on one, and he's just like, daddy this and daddy this, and he's blowing my mind with all this shit that he never fucking says at dinner or any other time, and he's just like, we're just in this zone. I'm like, yo, we're gonna go get coffee. I'm gonna get you a cookie. We're gonna just take instead of walking the 11-minute walk to school, we're gonna do a 30-minute walk. So what? You miss morning meeting. The fuck is morning meeting? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you do that every day. Like, these moments where like you're sharing with me this stuff because you got sleep and you got, you know, like you're just in a good mood and it's sunny. Like, then I could respond back to you and give you my thoughts on it. And now that he's 9, we have these dialogues. This isn't very much, it isn't me telling you what to do anymore. It's very communicative. And so I'm just like, yeah, that's how I parent. Like, these moments are like, because you know what, when he's an adult, when he's 18 and when he has a kid, he's gonna remember our chats and walking. He's not gonna remember whatever thing that they're gonna say again tomorrow, and they're gonna say again Friday, and they're gonna say again Monday. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of how I parent. That's not how I was raised at all. But like, that's how this, you know, as new age dads, this is what we do, right? Like, it's just like being as present and as being as cognizant and being as just like, you know, just like bend the rules a little bit, because also society's rules have changed. Like, you know, like, facts. You know, how am I gonna tell you got to be there at 8 o'clock when I work from home, my wife works from home, like, you know, it's just like, but also at the same time, no structure, you know, I mean, not no N-O, but like, he needs to know structure. He needs to have his jumping in the garbage moments. Yeah. But like, at the same time, he needs to have his grandparents, you know, the version of grandparents giving you a bag of chips that you didn't have to pay for. You got to have those moments too. So I try to let him know, like, yeah, like, when we're locked in, like, I'm not gonna drop you off so you could sing a fucking song to the same 30 kids when we're having this like life-changing conversation. Get the fuck out of here. We're gonna eat that cookie. You know, I'm gonna get the big coffee, and we're gonna chat. So that's how I parent.
I mean, those moments are priceless, bro. Priceless. You can't put the homie Premium Pete always says presence over presence.
1000%.
Right, and I think that's so important. All right, so we're gonna round this out. I got a few questions, and I think I know the answer to this one, but I'm curious. What is your favorite achievement to date? Like, what are you most proud of?
Kid.
Yeah, I knew that one. I knew that one before even asking it. What's the strangest thing we're gonna put this in air quotes, celebrity has brought you?
Strangest in which way?
I mean, just could be whatever. Being recognized somewhere, being this, that, relationships, places you've been, who you've DJ'd for.
It's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of like weird portals to the universe that have opened through my career that I have no business being in, that I'm so grateful for. But as far as like more unique answers, like I would say, wow, I don't know. I'm trying to give you like a really good answer, like not just like a generic answer, like, well, I got to DJ for so-and-so, you know, because that kind of like, I appreciate that, but that's not like, you know, strange. I would say, oh, you know what? I'll give you a different answer. I'm going to invert your question.
Okay.
Because my career has given me a lot of those. Infinite those, if you really look at it, right? Any of us that like have been blessed to be in this for a long time will have those opportunities. But what it also, because of all of those things that have happened to me for 20 years, what was really interesting was when I met my wife, my second wife, I met her during the pandemic, I didn't have any of those things going on. I didn't work for a year and a half.
Yep.
You know, I worked in my kitchen on Instagram. That was fun. I made $40 PayPal, you know, Venmo was great, you know, and I only figured out how to really get tips DJ on Instagram because I added my kid's name to my Venmo, because if people saw Mick and Miles, they're like, oh, he's a dad. We're gonna give him $20, not $5. You know what I mean? Put my kid in the back like dancing. It was great. You know, that's still my Venmo to this day. Every time I go to the nail salon, they're like, who's Miles? I'm like, he's not getting a pedicure today. But like, my point is like, you know, we have these unique opportunities that happen to us all the time being in this world, and it's a blessing, but then we didn't have them. And when I met my wife, our first year and a half, I didn't DJ anywhere. I didn't get all these perks. We didn't get to go to all these cool places. I didn't get all these free things in the mail, all this crap that we take for granted every day. Like I didn't have people calling me. We couldn't go to all these, we couldn't do all that stuff that we get to do now. We didn't have any of that. It was just me, her, you know, cooking, some maybe seamless delivery, you know what I mean? Like that's it. And so the strangest thing it gave me was like the delusion that was normal. Not that, I don't mean that I'm delusional, but it is normal in our world. And then it's taken away. And then when I met my wife, we had a year and a half with none of that. And then our love blossomed 1,000x because we didn't have anywhere to go. We didn't have any false pretense. We didn't have any, oh, yeah, it's so cool. We get to do all these things. We didn't do shit. We sat on the couch, we read books, we watched movies, we talked. You know, I told her all about my kid for months until she met him when we got engaged. Like, we just did nothing but just like learn each other for like, I don't know, like 600 days. And then the world came back. But like, what I got from the opposite of your question was that. I was like, great. No matter what the fuck happens now, we're great. We're so good. Yeah. You know, it's going well, as she says. Like, you know, like because so when we added back in all that stuff, like it was cool. Yeah. It was great. It was like, you know, it's great. Like, it's like you go to a restaurant, you pay for this fancy dinner, but then maybe the chef gives you like a free dessert. All this other stuff just kind of feels like, we're great. We already had the steak, we already had the lobster, we already had the cheese plate and the great wine. Thank you for the free, you know, cake at the end. Appreciate it. Don't need it. We'll take it. Yeah. But it's not important. You know, and that's what all those things feel like now.
I love that. And then, what's been the most inspiring for you? Whether person, whether place, whether music?
I mean, in which way? Can I ask for just a little bit?
I mean, I think creatively, business, life, love, whichever feels like what's the most inspiring. Could be any of those.
You know what, for me, it's actually really interesting. I do a lot of walking around Brooklyn now, just listening to like old jazz. And it just sounds like what I'm watching with my eyes, especially if it's like night and it's like dusk, or especially in the winter, like maybe like there's some like Christmas lights out. It just feels a little more like, it feels like you're listening to what you're watching. And it's interesting because it's not like listening to like shit I play or shit that like inspired me or stuff where I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh, this would mix with this. Because, you know, if you're a DJ, your brain's always on. And of course, sometimes there's some jazz, I'm like, oh shit, that's that Nas sample. Fuck, let's move on from the Amar Jamal today, you know? But it's just like, most of the time it's more like ambient, but it's just so iconic. Yeah. And when you're listening to it and then you realize, like, even the history of like our neighborhood, some of the amazing people that like lived over here, and you're just realizing that like, this guy might have been walking down this street when he made this album like 50 years ago and stuff like that. Like that to me is like, from a mental health perspective, super amazing, super amazing. You know, I don't know what it's like when people like listen to like wild shit all day, then go home and have to like be a parent, you know? Yeah. Like it's crazy, or be a kid. Like, you know, what is it like when you're listening to like super like ramped up shit like all day, then you gotta go home and do algebra. Like, or go home and change your sister's diaper.
Fix your bed.
Just like, you know, it's just like, how do you, music for me has always been a thermometer of my mood. And I want my mood now to just be calm, peaceful, chill as much as possible. It's not always possible. So I try to put my inputs in as that. And so, yeah, that for me is like, that's mine. I've tried all the meditation apps, bro. I've tried the books. I've read the 10% things and all of those. And it's great. And they've taken all my money. And I'm still subscribed to all that shit. I need to open up the phone and go to that. I know everyone's getting me for like $9.95 a month for like all those apps. But like, I don't use them. But like what works for me kind of is honestly just like what I just described. I'm never happier. I mean, that's not true. But that gets me to where I should be from a calm perspective.
But I mean, what if you looked at those as meditations?
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's kind of how I choose to look at it, right?
I think we define meditation in such a box, right? And it can mean something different for everybody else. Meditation is just observing the things that are happening, whether it's your thoughts, your surroundings, or everything else, and just allowing them to be.
That's my version of that. Give me,
I love that.
Great.
The walking meditations. Well, bro, I appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with me, man.
We did it.
This is great. Nah, I love learning about people, man, and especially when, you know, we had a relationship, we don't know, we're not hanging out every day, you know? But to see that here and how you got to this point, thank you, bro. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Congrats on everything you're doing.
Thank you. That's it. We are wrapped.